Hey everybody, we are back, and this is Brief and Fly number 2. I had a blast with the first one that we did. Hopefully you guys did as well. It was a concept that sort of came to me out of the blue, really. I mean, just because of how well the flight portion of the VOR video went. And so I figured, what the heck, let's do something a little bit different and see how people hey, what's going on? How are you? Just figured we'll do something a little bit different and see how people like it. And I had a great time. Seems like everybody else did. So we'll do it again. And this is actually an incredibly interesting approach. And what made me choose it was I was looking for an approach to a Asobo handcrafted airport because I wanted something that everybody would have access to. And I think it's actually part of the one of the upper tiers of the sim, so it's possible that some people might not have access to this airport. And I've never even flown here, but I was just looking for a stock Asobo airport that had an interesting non-precision approach that sort of built off what we talked about in the last stream, and this one definitely does. So this is the and first of all, thank you again to Navigraph for there's a link in the description of the video or of the stream for Navigraph charts, little discount on Navigraph charts, and I appreciate them letting me use these for the class. And also anybody who's interested in supporting the channel, I have a Patreon link in the description as well, or you can click on the join button and join the channel here on YouTube. But what's really interesting, so the last approach that we did was was actually one of the approaches I did on my instrument check ride. And if you didn't see that, you can go back and watch that stream. It was pretty interesting for a number of reasons, actually. But one of the things that I found interesting about that approach, and one of the reasons why I wanted to use that one, is because there were multiple ways of identifying some of the waypoints and fixes on the approach. And when you look at something like this, you look at this approach, it's intimidating. And it's going to get more intimidating when I tell you what all this stuff is, to be honest with you. The letters NDB should give you an indication. But when you look at this stuff, it can look intimidating, but when you break it down, it's very systematic, and you know, I don't want to say easy to understand, but once you start getting the hang of it, things start to make sense, and everything is sort of how should I put it? Everything is sort of regimented, and things progress in an expected way. But this is a really, really great follow-up. This is somewhat of a complicated approach, and I had to read through it and do some figuring to understand exactly how to do it. And it does involve an NDB, and an NDB is sort of the the black sheep of the instrument flying world. And first of all, I've never flown an NDB approach. I've never used an NDB for navigation. So this is you're gonna see in real time me figuring this out. I'm pretty sure I understand how it works, but we'll certainly find out. But there's a couple of interesting things about this approach. So number one, it does involve uh, a course reversal. I mean, it's basically a course reversal in and of itself, the approach itself, because you have to go outbound and then make this standard rate turn to the inbound leg. Now, there are, excuse me, there are you can see there are two different outbound legs. There's the 349 outbound leg, and there's the 010 outbound leg. So these are different ways of flying the approach depending on what type of aircraft you're flying, and we'll get into that more as we go along. But it is a localizer approach, so there's no vertical guidance. This is a non-precision approach. The name of the approach contains the runway number, so you know it's a straight-in approach. If it were Localizer Alpha, for example, or Localizer Bravo, you would know that it's not a straight-in approach, but it is. And it's got some, in addition to the course reversal, so the initial approach fix is down here over the airport, and then you fly outbound and come around back in. The NDB part is interesting. The missed approach involves flying the NDB, which that is going to be, that's going to be a hoot. If we do have to go missed, you're really going to see me sweat then. But the other thing that is interesting about this approach is one of my favorite things in non-precision approaches, and it's something called, you can see the letters here, CDFA. And what that means is, I always say constant, but it's actually continuous descent final approach. And basically what it means is that instead of flying step downs like you would normally fly on a localizer approach, like if you see here in the plan view, you would, maybe expect to step down to 1,500 feet here to stay above this 1,300 foot altitude, step down here to stay above the 530, maybe step down to 600, and then step down again and fly along to your MDA, your minimum descent altitude. This has a continuous descent down to the missed approach point, which is more like a precision approach, but it's not a precision approach. So there's quite a few interesting tidbits about this particular approach, and we'll go through the whole thing. There's also circle to land minimums, and we'll talk about those and what they mean. And I don't want to spend too much time going over the chart, but at the same time, I don't want to skimp on it either. So we'll go through it pretty thoroughly, including just covering things. One of the things about flying instrument approaches is that you're always doing the same thing, and you're always doing it in the same way. And so what we're doing by going over the frequencies, going over the courses, the altitudes, et cetera, really is doing this in the same way that you would do it in real life. So you might say, okay, well, we've gone over frequencies before and headings and altitudes, and we know what those mean. But you have to do it on every approach, when you brief the approach. So we will start at the top. And again, this is Donegal, Ireland. This is the Localizer runway 20 approach. First thing that's sort of interesting about it is it's only for category A, B, and C aircraft. If you watch the first stream in this series, you'll know what those are. So those are basically approach speeds. And category A aircraft are aircraft that fly approaches at less than 90 knots, and that's indicated airspeed. Category B aircraft are aircraft that fly from, and those are generally your piston singles, right? Your Cherokees, your 172s, 182s, etc. The category B aircraft are aircraft that fly a final approach speed of 91 to 120 knots indicated. And those are like your Bonanzas, your Barons, your Moonies, that type of thing. Also, your a lot of the single engine turboprops like the TBM, the TBM, 850, 930, etc. Category C airplanes are most of your medium range, like medium haul jets or short haul jets, like the 737, the A320. Those are well, it's more the A320 than the 737. But those, well, no, actually, I'm sorry, the A320 and 737. But those category C approach aircraft are aircraft that fly a final approach speed of 120 to 121 to 140 knots. So that's the first kind of interesting thing. So it's limited in who can fly the approach, and the reason for that, and we're talking about the speeds. You can see, we'll get into it a little bit more later, but you can see that this tighter in circular, semicircular pattern here, a teardrop pattern, is for category A and B aircraft. This one is for category C aircraft. The reason they don't have category D aircraft listed, and my guess is because there's not enough protected airspace to give a category D aircraft enough space to be able to maneuver and make the turn inbound. You can see right here too. There's some high terrain right here on the inbound leg, or just east of the inbound leg. He says, thinking. So some interesting things going along there. So what you would do, and when you're, let's say, depending on what aircraft you're flying, but in a Cherokee, I always check the weather about 25 miles from the airport, and that would be your ATIS. That's 129.93. So you tune that in, you get your weather information, you'd set your altimeter, you would know the approach that's in use, which would probably not be this one, because they do have RNAV approaches and that type of thing into this airport. Yeah, I mean, they've even got RNP approaches, which tells the reason they have RNP approaches because there is terrain in the area, and so they need precision, tracking along the ground in order not to hit anything. So you would know the approach in use, and you get basically get yourself set up. And it's got Donegal Tower, which is 129.85, and then Donegal Ground, which is 129.805. Well, actually, Tower and Ground are both 805. And you'll see also the localizer, which is the left-right guidance for the approach coming in here. This 203 inbound leg. And you can see that these all have asterisks on them. The radio frequencies and the localizer frequency, and the reason is because there's something that Jeppesen wants you to look up to find out what this is, and generally the reason on a radio frequency is because there is a time limit. In other words, the tower probably closes at 9 p.m. local time, something like that. So that's why you've got to look up and find out what the notation is. So getting to the actual approach information here. So the localizer is 110.3. That's the frequency you would put in your nav radio, and the IFN is the Morse code identifier. And you can see down here underneath the localizer box here in the overhead view, it's got the Morse code signal down here, so you can listen to the localizer frequency, and you would actually pull out your volume knob and listen to it, and you'd hear the Morse code identifier, and that's how you know that you're properly tuned and that the localizer is working. I'm actually curious about the Donegal, why the localizer has a asterisk, because I didn't look it up, and I don't have the chart supplement that would allow me to look it up. So I wonder what it is. It could be there is no note attached. So it could be just because it's a localizer DME, which is a little bit unusual. Usually you have a VOR DME, not a localizer DME. So you can see here that 110.3, and down here 110.3 says localizer DME, and the reason for what DME is distance measuring equipment, which is a instrument you have in your airplane that gives you the distance from a certain radio transmitter, in this case the localizer. And again, you would normally expect a VOR DME, not a localizer DME. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever seen a localizer DME, but this is like I said, this is a rather interesting approach. So you would tune that 110.3 in your localizer, in your nav radio. The final approach course is 203. and you would tune that in your OBS. And then the glide slope intercept, which is an interesting, I mean, it's not technically a glide slope intercept because there's no glide slope because it's a non-precision approach and they don't have glide slopes. But because this is a CDFA, continuous descent final approach, it is listed 2,300 feet. And the number in parentheses is the height above touchdown. And I thank somebody for asking that question in the previous class because that made me look it up. And I was saying just height above ground, but it's actually the height above touchdown. And so that's where you would begin your descent at 2,300 feet. So this is again interesting. It says DAMDA. You don't have a decision altitude on a non-precision approach by definition. A decision altitude is exactly that. You get down to you make a descent down to a specific altitude, and once you hit that altitude, if you have to make a decision, do I have the visual references I need to be able to continue the approach and land, or do I not? Whereas normally on a localizer only approach, the only thing you would see is an MDA, which is a minimum descent altitude, which is an altitude that you descend to, level off, and then fly level until the missed approach point. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail here shortly. Brian, 24 months, man. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I really appreciate the support, and you've always been a great support, and I really appreciate it. Good to see you, Brian. So the airport elevation and the runway are the same height, are the same elevation, which is not always the case, but 30 feet. So that is basically sea level, and I usually treat these as sea level when I'm thinking about it. We've talked about the minimum safe altitudes before, and this is a good one because this one it always gives you in the minimum safe altitude section. It'll tell you what navigation facility or maybe the airport. Oftentimes it's a VOR, but it tells you the navigation facility that the minimum safe altitudes are based on. And in this case, minimum safe altitude CFN NDB. So this is the Donegal NDB, which is right down here. You can see it says CFN. So that's also the initial approach fix for the approach. But basically, if you are inbound anywhere from 219 to 003, this entire sector over here, you can go down to about 3,000 feet before you have to start worrying about terrain. And over on this side, you can come down to about 3,600 feet before you have to start worrying about terrain. Now, I'm not familiar with this airport, and I should have looked actually. Let me take a quick look here. That's interesting because there's nothing out here to hit, doesn't seem. But in any event, this you can see this terrain over here, and this one is even this hill here is even pointed out on the chart, 2466. It's about 2,500 feet and elevation, and so over here you can tell why it's 3,600 feet for the minimum safe altitude, because the minimum safe altitude is normally 1,000 feet above the highest object within, in this particular case, a 30 nautical mile range. So that's why the minimum safe altitude out here is 3,600. So, and those are basically emergency altitudes. Those give you an indication of what you're gonna. Let's say you're in a twin engine airplane, you lose an engine. Most twin engine airplanes will not will struggle to maintain altitude on one engine, and so you know that if let's say you're on a feeder route here into start the approach, and you're at 5,000 feet and you lose an engine, you know I can afford to come down to 3,600 before I really have to start worrying about it. So that's what these mean. And now we get into the good stuff, which is the missed approach. So the missed approach is climb straight ahead, and at 1,500 feet, turn right, max 210 knots to the NDB and enter the hold, or as directed by ATC. No turns before missed approach point, and there you should never make a turn to try to execute a missed approach before you hit the missed approach point. And I've talked about this before. If you're gonna fly a miss, let's say you realize out here on the approach, out by Yagan, you realize I don't have this one. I'm gonna have to go around and do a missed approach and come back. Granted, you would still fly straight ahead to fly this missed approach because it's right, starts basically right over top of the runway. But let's say the missed approach was over here somewhere, or even more particularly over here somewhere. If the hold was over here, you cannot go just from wherever you are to the missed approach point, or to the hold. You have to fly to the missed approach point and then fly the full missed approach. Otherwise, you are not guaranteed one of my favorite things in instrument flight, which is obstacle clearance. I love obstacle clearance. I love knowing that I'm not going to hit anything. So no turns before the missed approach point. The notes here are interesting. NDB and DME required, so you need the you need to be able to receive an NDB, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. And you also need to have DME equipment in the airplane in order to fly the approach. Now, you can use I'm trying to think if you can you can use GPS for your DME measurements. So for your distance measurements, I assume you can use it to find an NDB as well, but I don't know. So let's try and find out. ANDB. That's an interesting question. Okay, so you can. So technically, you could fly it without either if you had IFR approved GPS. If you were to do that and you had some sort of an incident and an accident, a reportable event as they call it, you might have some explaining to do to the to the Irish aviation authorities as to why you were flying this approach without the required equipment. But technically, I think you can fly this approach with a localizer and a IFR approved GPS. Procedure only available when center is active, which is another interesting thing, given that they don't give you the center frequency on the frequencies up top, but so be it. And the other thing is DME reads 0 at the runway 20 threshold, and that is important to know for identifying the missed approach point that will. Well, actually, no, not for identifying this approach point, but it is important to know in any event, and we'll look at that as we continue here. Caution: turbulence may be expected due to terrain. This procedure lies over high ground. Do not descend below procedural level. There's always a good piece of advice. So here is the overhead view, and like I said, this is an intimidating looking approach, but it's relatively straightforward. So what is this showing us? So there's the first thing you want to look for is to find any initial approach fixes, and in this particular case, there's only one right here at the Donegal NDB, and it says, I'm actually going to keep this so you can see the plan view here on the side as well, on the bottom, but it says here. Donegal IAF, that's your initial approach fix, ingeniously defined by the FAA as an approach from which, or a fix from which the approach begins. There you go. So the initial approach fix is where you start the approach, and you could get vectored. For example, you could get vectored to the inbound localizer course. But if you were flying the full approach, you would start here at the Donegal NDB. Now, how do you identify an NDB? What is an NDB? An NDB is a non-directional beacon. And the way you use an NDB is an instrument in your aircraft called a non-directional, excuse me, an automatic direction finder. And using the ADF as it's abbreviated, you would tune in 361 on your ADF, and we'll look at that once we're in the airplane. And the what the ADF does, it's a radio that you tune in this 361, and it also has um a compass rose like your OBS has, but it's got a needle in it. The needle in the ADF always points to the NDB that you have tuned in. So there's no tuning it or turning, adjusting the compass rose to find out where it is. The needle of your ADF indicator always points towards the NDB that you have tuned, and that makes it a somewhat imprecise instrument, because you only know where it is. You don't know how far away it is. And NDBs are kind of strange. And so everything that you basically everything you do with an NDB is approximate. It's not a precision instrument. The one thing, and I've talked about this before, if you in the real world have an ADF in your airplane and you're going to take your instrument check ride, what you do is you take a little piece of tape and you write the letters INOP for inoperative, and you tape it over your ADF receiver, even if it's working perfectly fine. And the reason why you do that is because if you have a piece of equipment installed in your aircraft, it is expected that the examiner who is testing you tests you on the use of that piece of equipment. Nobody uses NDBs anymore, to be perfectly honest. I'm pretty surprised I found one, to be perfectly honest. But you don't want to use it. You certainly don't want to use it on an instrument exam. But it is an interesting philosophical exercise, shall we say. So the way you would fly this approach, we talked about the approach categories. So we're going to be flying it today in the mighty Cessna 152. And in the Cessna 152, we are definitely an approach category A aircraft, because our approach speed is less than 90 knots. Our cruise speed is almost less than 90 knots. So we would be flying this inner teardrop basically here, right? And so what you do is you would tune the Donegal NDB in your ADF, say that 3 times fast. You would fly to the NDB and cross it, turn to an outbound heading of 010. And the reason you would be flying a heading of 010 and not a course, a course is a track across the ground. If you were going to fly a course of 010, you would be flying from this NDB on a 010 outbound across the ground, right? A 010 radial across the ground. A heading corrects for the wind. So let's say the wind is blowing hard out of the left. I'm trying to think of how it's going to present on the screen. But let's say the wind is blowing hard out of the left. It's blowing hard left to right. In order to fly a 010 degree course, you would probably have to fly, let's say, a 360 degree heading, right? So the heading is where your nose is pointed. But because this is an NDB, you're basically going to fly the 010 degree heading outbound. And once you reach this this 10 nautical mile distance from the localizer, the IFN localizer, then you're going to start a standard rate right-hand turn around to around to CL21. And then let's see if they define that down here. They do not. Yeah, they do. So the CL21 is a 10 nautical mile distance from the runway. 3 and 2.5 is 5.5, and 1. That's interesting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's CL21 is 7 miles from the localizer, which, as they set up here, the localizer is at the threshold of the runway. So 7, so 0.7 and 2.3 is 3, plus 2.5 is 5.5, plus 1 is 6.5, plus 0.5 is 7. So this CL21 right here is 7 nautical miles on your DME, and we'll see. It's, as I've said before, it's way easier to understand this stuff when you are in the airplane. So you make that turn, you come around, you intercept the inbound at CL21, and you're on an inbound course of 203. You follow the vertical profile down. Now here's where it gets interesting again as well, and is different than what you would normally expect with a non-precision approach. And the reason is because of, like I said, these 4 letters down here, CDFA, constant descent final, or continuous descent final approach. And if I'm confusing the daylights out of you, please don't hesitate to ask a question. I'm trying to explain things in order and be systematic about it, but it is, you know, I understand this can be confusing. So then the Yegan, you can see the Maltese cross right here, and that's glide slope intercept, and or the start of the final approach segment of the approach on a non-precision approach. And like I said, normally there is no glide slope, but in this particular case, with the continuous descent final approach, there is. So what is a continuous descent final approach? Again, instead of having you cross, see, there's the 2,300 foot. I'm going to zoom in here. There's the 2,300 foot minimum altitude for this turn that you're doing to come around and get set up on final. So you descend to 2,300 feet in that turn. You would actually, you can see here, you can see right below the Donegal NDB, it says 3,000 feet, and right over here, NDB, 3,000 feet. So you would cross the NDB at 3,000 feet, outbound 010, and in the outbound leg, and you can see up here it says 010 for category A and B, or 349 for category C. And again, the category C aircraft are going faster, so that's why they need more room to make the turn. And these 2 headings are listed here in the profile view as well. But with the category A aircraft, you're going to fly the 010 degree outbound, and in the outbound portion of the approach, you're going to descend from 3,000 feet down to 2,300 feet. And once you turn inbound at CL21, you're going to be at 2,300 feet, and you're going to stay at 2,300 feet until you reach Yegan, which is 6.3 DME off of the localizer, the localizer here at the airport. Once you cross that, using the older style of what we call dive and drive, what you would normally do is you would go from 2,300 feet and you'd chop the power and you drop down to 1,300 feet, which is the next altitude. And then you would level off and fly along at 1,300 feet until you reach the 4 DME distance. Then you would descend again, you would drop again down to the 530 feet altitude, and then you'd fly along at 530 feet until you reached 1.5, where you would descend to the MDA, the minimum descent altitude, which in this case is 380 feet. But because this is a CDFA, continuous descent, what they want you to do, and I think this, to me, this is the correct or the preferable way to fly any non-precision approach. And you can do it in your own way without all the information that they give you here, but I'm going to show you the information that we can use to make this descent. So we have the localizer, which is, and I'm sorry for moving this around all the time, but it's just kind of easier to describe. So we have the localizer, and that's what gives us the left-right guidance inbound to the runway, and that's the 203-degree inbound course. Now, and that is the IFN is the identifier of that localizer. Now, these are the distances, IFN DME. So these are the distances from that localizer. That's 1 nautical mile, 2 nautical miles, 3 nautical miles, etc. And it gives you the altitude that you should be at each of those distances from the localizer. And you would start out here. So at 6 nautical miles, as the police go chasing somebody, at 6 nautical miles, you would want to be at 2,180 feet. So I would aim for 2,200 feet. At 5 miles, you want to be at 1,830. IFN, it doesn't, there's no particular reason why, if you're wondering why they called it IFN, they just give it a name, just like the waypoint YEG, and it doesn't mean anything itself, but it's just an identifier. So IFN identifies the localizer, but it doesn't have any meaning in and of itself, if that's what you're asking. Let me know if that answers your question. So, and it's just what they use to, again, for the Morse code, that you can check to make sure that you have, that you're correctly tuned to the, because let's say you tune 110.4 and then you listen for the Morse code, obviously you're not going to hear one. And that's the indication, okay, either I'm not tuned correctly, or perhaps the localizer is out of service. So, so you would, and then, so then you at a distance of 4 nautical miles from the localizer, from the localizer. Okay. Which is right here, this DL 297, you would want to be at 1,480 feet. I would say 1,500. I would always round up. And then at 3 nautical miles, you'd want to be at 1,130, 2 nautical miles, 780, and 1 nautical mile, 430. So this gives you a way of, and again, it's non-precision. It's not a vertical glide slope down to the airport. It's an approximation that you use to descend at a constant rate to get down to the minimum descent altitude. Now, I talked about this before in the previous class. So you see 1.0, it says 430 feet. Now, a standard glide slope or glide path, which is the vertical guide, a glide slope is the vertical guidance on a ILS approach. A glide path is the vertical guidance on an RNAV approach, like an LPV or LNAV, VNAV. Those are normally 313 feet per nautical mile, roughly 300 feet per nautical mile. So, in other words, you would expect 3 nautical miles from whatever you're flying to if you were on a normal glide slope. And this right here is kind of visualizes what a glide slope would look like. You would expect at 3 miles to be roughly about 900 feet or 950 feet or so above the field. And at 2 nautical miles, you would expect to be about 600 feet. At 1 nautical mile, you would expect to be at about 400 feet, or 300 feet rather. And you can see here that the altitudes are higher than what you would expect. And so what that means is that you're descending at a steeper descent angle than you normally would be. So you're descending here at an angle of 3.3 degrees. You can see that down here. It says descent angle. So basically what that means is you're having to descend faster than you normally would. And this is important to know because you want to know that so when you're descending faster, your tendency is going to be to have a higher indicated airspeed. So you're going to have to use lower power setting than you normally would to descend and stay on that this vertical glide path, we'll call it, which it's technically not one, but it's a steeper angle of descent, and it's important to know that, because basically it's going to make landing a little, not more, I don't know if I want to say more difficult, but it's going to make it a little bit different than it normally would be if you are on a normal 3-degree glide path. And so you can see down here with the other thing, they give such great information in these charts nowadays. The descent angle, like I said, is 3.3 degrees. Your ground speed in knots. Now we're probably going to be flying roughly 70 knots ground speed, I would say, on this approach. And so in order to stay on that 3.3 degree descent angle, we're going to have to fly a descent rate of about 409 feet per nautical mile. So figure 400 feet, or 400 feet per minute, excuse me. These altitude numbers, these vertical speed numbers are in feet per minute. So about 400 feet per minute to maintain the descent angle at 70 knots. At 90 knots, you would have to go about 526 feet per minute descent. And these are a little higher than normal. Like for 140 knots, you would normally expect to see, let's see what it would, this one's steeper than normal too. But anyway, is this one standard? This one is standard. Okay, so this is a different approach, but you can see here the glide slope on this approach is 3 degrees, and for 140 knots, you would have a descent rate of 743 feet per minute. That's a standard 3-degree glide slope, 743 at 140 knots. And I just remember that from flying, basically flying like the Phoenix or the 737. Whereas here for 140 knots, you're flying over 800 feet per minute descent to get down for the on the descent angle here. So that's that, and we know that it's going to be a steeper descent. The missed approach point, and this is always important to know, the missed approach point is a 0. I'm going to zoom in here. It's a 0.5 degree nautical mile distance from the IFN localizer. So when we'll see when we're in the airplane, when you hit the missed approach point, so the MDA is technically 380 feet, but the missed approach point itself is actually a location, but you cannot descend below this 380 feet. This is very unusual for a non-precision approach. Normally on a non-precision approach, you would come down to a distance, like an altitude, like I said, and level off, and then you'd fly to the missed approach point. But you can see the M right here, and that's D0.5 IFN, and they're so kind nowadays to write the missed approach point right here on the chart, because in days gone by it was difficult to kind of figure out what it was, or could be difficult to figure out what it is. So this is the lighting information for the airport. You have a PAPI, which is the 4 lights, the precision approach path indicator. The 2 red, 2 white is what you're looking for on an approach. And then it has a high intensity approach light system, which is what we call the rabbit, which is the lights extend, the strobing lights that extend out from the center line of the runway beyond the runway threshold that guide you in. And then missed approach is real simple. climb to 1,500 feet. Now, a couple other things that are interesting about this, and so getting into a little bit into why JEP charts are just so great, because on an FAA chart you don't get some of this information, and you might need it. And if you were in a situation where you did need it and you would have to go fumbling around for it in the FAA charts, I would not want to be in that position. But we know what the minimum is, if I can say that clearly, for straight in landing. It's 380 feet. Now, what is the visibility requirement? It says R 1,200 meters. Now, I'm an American. I don't know what the heck meters is all about in terms of miles. What is it, about 3,600 feet, give or take? So it's about 2/3 of a mile, I think. Hey Siri, how many feet is 1,200 meters?
1,200 meters is
4,000 feet. So it's about 4,000 feet. I was pretty close. So that's about 3/4 of a mile, right? So because the visibility is indicated in with this R here, the runway visual range, it's actually the visibility that you get from the tower that is controlling as to whether you can make this approach or not. And so it's about 3/4 of a mile with everything working, your PAPIs and your approach light system. Now you can see here it says ALS out 3.3. See, I always figure like 3, and because we use yards, and yards is closer to 3. But I don't know. When I was in kindergarten, which mind you was 45 years ago, we were talking about, okay, we're going to be switching to the metric system, and we'll be learning the metric system. It's 45 years later, we're still on feet and ounces and whatever nobody understands. So meters and kilometers makes so much more sense. But so these lights here, you can see HIALS, approach light system. So if the approach light system is out, you need more visibility to fly the approach, because you're not going to have those strobing lights giving you an indication of where the runway is. So if the approach light system is out, you would need 1,500 meters of runway visual range. And runway visual range, there are two. There's a transmitter and a receiver, and it broadcasts. It shoots basically like a laser beam from one to the other, and depending on how much of it gets through, it can tell how far forward you can see in a straight line, in a level line. So for a category A or B aircraft, you would need 1,500. For a category C aircraft, you would need 1,600, because again, the category C aircraft is going faster. The circle to land minimums are pretty cool too. So this is not somewhere I would do a circle to land approach, but so circle to land west of the runway. In other words, over here. It's runway 20. So the reciprocal runway is 020. So this runway, and if we were landing south to north, it would be runway 02. So let's say you had to fly, or for whatever reason you were flying this approach, the localizer approach, to 20, but you wanted to circle around and land in the opposite direction. Now, why might you want to do that? You might want to do that because the winds favor 20 or 02, but you can only fly the approach to 20 for whatever reason. And to fly a circle to land approach, you would fly this approach to 20, and once you broke out of the clouds, if you were above 600 feet at a maximum airspeed of 100 knots, then you could basically make a right-hand turn and circle around, and then make a landing northbound on 02. Which, I mean, look, that's not an unreasonable thing to do. This right here at 745 feet gives me a little pause, depending on how far out maybe you got, and you might, I don't know. It's not something I'd want to be finding out, especially not at 180 knots. By the way, at 900 feet. But so basically, if you can see the airport above whatever this altitude is for the airspeed that you're flying at, you can fly. You can fly a circle to land approach to the opposite runway. Now, this is for west of the runway. This here is total area, which to me means you could theoretically fly it east of the runway as well. But here you've got something that's 891 feet high. Here you've got something that's 834 feet high. And your minimums are 700. So you could technically be flying this at 750 feet, and you've got terrain around you that's above you. I don't know if I'd want to be doing that. I really don't. I'm sort of surprised that they would let you. But the other thing to remember about circle to land approaches is if you break out into the clear and you're above 600 feet and you are going to circle to land the other direction, if you have to keep the airport in visual sight at all times. If you lose visual contact with the runway at any time, you have to go missed. You have to. There's no choice. So, but I would absolutely not fly a circle to land approach here. No chance. No chance. Carrick Finn Donegal, Tory Island to the north is a great visual reference. Ah, neat. See, like I said, I haven't flown this approach, so I don't know. But it seems to me that there's enough things around here to hit that I wouldn't be too eager to fly a circle to land. And I think they gave a note. It doesn't give it. See, I find it surprising that there's a circle to land approach here, but so. And then, and you can see the visual depiction of the missed approach down here, and you would fly outbound straight ahead to 1,500 feet, and then turn right, and you basically make a standard rate turn around, straight in to the NDB, and then you would make left-hand turns. Left-hand turns are non-standard turns in a hold. Standard turns are right-hand turns, but there's, relatively obvious why they're having you do it to the left, because over here to the right, there's terrain. So you would climb to 1,500 and then start making that climbing right-hand turn to 3,000 feet back to the NDB. So, and then you basically, once you're established in the hold, when you're ready to try the approach again, if that's what you want to do, when you're inbound 203 on a 023 degree heading, once you cross the NDB, then you would make your left hand turn either to 010 or 349, depending on what category aircraft you're flying. So that all being said, let us go fly this approach and see what we get here. Make sure I don't have certain things running that would complicate matters, and I don't. So this is in theory, this should be a relatively straightforward approach, believe it or not. Typically the what makes non-precision approaches easier to fly, I guess is one way to put it, even though that's not really how I would term it, is that they are less precise. Holding needles on an ILS or an LPV for 10 nautical miles as you're coming in on final can be challenging. It's mentally a lot of work, especially, in a small airplane where you're hand flying it and you're let's say you're flying it at 80 knots ground speed. That's going to be 7 minutes, 8 minutes of trying to hold those needles center, the entire time and monitoring everything else. It can get a little bit adventuresome, shall we say. And please tell me, no, don't tell me it's not. Oh, thank you. So yeah, like I said, it can be a little adventuresome. Not adventuresome, but just stressful flying an ILS approach. It's a different thing. Um, hey JGG, what's going on? You must have landed. We're doing an approach that has an NDB. Have you ever flown an NDB approach? I mean, this isn't an NDB approach, but it has an NDB. But this is gonna be a fun one. So let me see here. All right, now we're gonna fire up the mighty, and I do mean mighty 152. There's a WB sim, and because I am who I am, I'm gonna have to change the identifier here. Oh, by the way, JGG, I'm gonna need some Jose. I'm gonna need some instruction on landing A320s. The local spinal surgeon where I land the Airbus is a happy man. Let me just tell you that, because my Airbus landings are appalling. They are appalling. Let's see, EIDL. Let's go EIDL. So we'll do this one first visually. We might not do it at all unless, okay. We'll do this one first visually, just to see it, and then we'll try it with the whole pilot. Oh man, so you know your NDBs. I was saying before that if you have an airplane with an NDB, and let me get the airplane. I'm going to start on the runway. That if you have an airplane with an NDB, or with an ADF installed rather, when you get ready for your check ride, you take a piece of tape, write in-op on it, and tape it over your ADF, even if it works, because if it works, your your examiner can test you on it, which would be horrifying. But anyway, man, I tell you, my Airbus landings are bad. I mean, my jet landings are generally not really spectacular, but at least the 737 I can get away with. The 777 I can land that thing, and you must be excited, by the way, about the Bluebird. The 757 is coming out pretty soon. I guess they said third quarter, so that's pretty cool stuff. So now let's go fly us a localizer approach here into Donegal, Ireland. Man, I freaking bombed one on today at Fort Lauderdale. But let me see here. So, with any luck, I've never flown in or out of this airport. It might take a second here to load. But this should be a fun approach. And I've never used an NDB. Never even used one in my life. So, we shall see how this goes. You get to see your host sweat today. But this should be a fun one. So, and I can't. Well, I suppose. How are we doing? Nothing yet. This might take a few minutes. So I was going to use a faster airplane for this stream, but then I realized, like, the whole point of practicing approaches in this way is to show how they work, right? And the slower the better, really. I have actually I have a Cessna 150, and I have flown it along over a highway and looked down and watched cars pass me. I think everybody who's flown a 150 has experienced that before. There's I don't know if you guys know Classic Jet SimPilot. He has a Beech Sierra, and he said it's the only GA aircraft that is at risk of a bird strike from behind. Yeah, 152 is perfect for this. Even more perfect for this if it loads. My bandwidth is not too low, by the way. I know that. But we'll just wait. We can look back at the chart here while we're waiting. You see me switching sides? So basically I'm going to put in the 110.3 localizer. I'm going to dial in that 361 frequency in the ADF. And then we will take off and we'll do a circle around here to the right, and then we'll come inbound to the ADF. And I get a bird strike. I thought that one was pretty funny. I'm starting to doubt that this is going to load at all, and I might have to, every once in a while I have to reload a flight, and I'm suspicious that I might have to do that this time. I'll give it another couple seconds. And then we'll cross the ADF, we'll come outbound 010. And then once we hit the 10 DME distance on the localizer, we'll start that right-hand turnaround inbound. And we should be established inbound 203 at the 7.0 distance. I'm going to restart this because sometimes it just sits there and does nothing. And you restart it and it does something. Let's see what happens here. See if it goes. And then we'll fly the continuous descent final approach into the field, and then we're going to go mist at about 400 feet, and then I'm going to try my first NDB hold. The left-hand turns. Yeah, the CDMB creaking, it is. There we go. We're starting to get some movement here. Here. Let's see. Come on, baby. Gotta get the mouse running in the gotta get the mouse running at the Azure servers here, apparently. But we've got something at least. So, with any luck here, and we've just had some nasty weather go through where I am. There's something else. There's a little lake looking good. Come on, baby. You know, as a matter of fact, we just had a big storm go through. I wonder if maybe a wire got knocked out or something. Is the stream still smooth or no? Seems like it is. But every once in a while, like a cable, internet cable, get knocked out, and then you're sort of out of luck. This is unusually long, however. Alright. Where is this airport? There we are. I mean, come on now. Start flight. I mean, the train is loaded. Let's see. I'm going to do a little internet speed test here. And that's perfectly fine. This is the joys of live streaming, especially when, like, I mean, it's one thing if you're just loading a flight and then flying, because you can load everything ahead of time and you know it's going to be working. But when you're doing stuff on the fly like this, sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly as you'd like it to. Let's see here. Yeah, internet speed is fine. So we'll just hang out and wait and be patient. It is very picturesque, unfortunately, for that. Sorry for the Sorry for the delay here. But it's part of the joy of, like I said, part of the joy of doing this. It's only been 10 minutes of us sitting here staring at this. Perhaps I should have loaded this ahead of time, but I didn't. 56k modem, I know, right? It's like 90s dial-up, you know. And if I had left it zoomed out a little bit more, I could have enjoyed the scenery. This looks pretty cool. But we don't seem to be making a heck of a lot more progress than we were before. I was hoping by zooming in that it would sort of help move things along. That does not seem to be the case. Alright, let's try going back here. And seeing if we can try it all. This is my career character, by the way. He looks like a fat Bono from U2. Let's see here. I haven't done any career flying. I meant to. It actually looks pretty interesting. Let's see. We're getting some. All right. Let's see here. Runway 21. Let's give it one more try. Local airport is Enniskillen Airport, EGAB, southeast of there, about 40 miles or so. Yeah, you know, Brian, there's more than a few airports that don't have any charts. You know, GPS is starting to change that, of course, but there was a couple airports that I looked at for using for this video or this stream that I couldn't because they don't have charts. Haha, here we go. All right. I'm probably gonna wish that I had. So this is an Asobo handcrafted airport. This is the other reason why I picked this, by the way. So we could have a cool.
State restored.
I didn't want you to restore it like that. Okay, whatever. All right, you restored it to. Okay, well, it restored it to not ready to fly, which is not what I wanted, but that's all right. Okay, let's get up our chart here as I get me aircraft started here. Hopefully my mug and the chart don't cover everything. All right, let's go rotating beacon back. Albstadt, Süddeutschland. Grüß dich, willkommen hier. Wir fliegen jetzt gleich ab. Rotating beacon on. Mixture, rich. Carb heat is cold. Master and battery switches on. Fuel valve is open. Crack the throttle. Make sure there's nobody outside to kill or maim. And then we go start the engine. Come on. No? Why not? Oh, I know why not. Do you remember the tragic end to our previous flight? So, let's see here. Fuel. I'm not going to make the same mistake. 5 gallons is all we get? I was going to say there's got to be more than... You're kidding me. No, this thing carries more than 12 gallons of fuel. I know that. I'm not... You can't fool me twice. Alright, let's go 8 aside. I'm gonna go 10. 9 aside is fine. Because last time, yeah. No fuel, no burn. Exactly that. Alright. Like I said, you can't fool me. Oh, we gotta turn on the ADF. Alright, sweet. Now. Now. Oh. You can't fool me. You can't fool me now. It's about 20 minutes to do that. But anyway, let's get up the chart. And then let's go over here. All right, boys. This is going to be interesting. All right, what did I say the NDB frequency was? NDB is 361. Okay, there we go. NDB is 110.3. 110.3 is the localizer. And we're a little bit on the hectic side here. So here is, let's see. Oh, where'd I put this? Here is the ADF. Now let's see. Hopefully this works. All right, so here's the ADF. This is the automatic direction finder, which shows us where the NDB is. So remember, this needle always points straight to the NDB. So if we tune in 361, 3. Oh, it's gonna take a while. Come on now. No? Alright. Huh? Why won't it? Huh? ADF. Okay. No, I don't want that. Stop. No. Sorry, but I've literally never used an ADF in my life. All right, then let's just start this again. And let's just start this again. What do I want? 361. No. Now what do I do? JGG pilot. NDB, non-directional beacon, baby. Come on. Why won't it give me... Why won't it go below 70? Oh, come on. JGG, any idea? Scrolling around the smaller ADF tuning knob. Never drops below. Navigation done backwards. That's great. Navigation done backwards. I'm a bit confused here. I mean, we are so close, yet so far away. Any idea, anybody? Before I run out of fuel again. Can you click on the small tuning knob and pull it out? That's a good question. No. Alright, let me see if I can ask somebody who might know. How to change frequency. Let's see. Same issue though. No, that's not gonna do it. Did you figure it out? Click it out and turn. Oh, this is annoying. 2D version of the ADF panel, that could be. Is there a way? Oh, come on. Where are you? Is there a way? Let's see, what do I want anyway? I want 010. That's sort of frustrating. I mean, it does the same thing on this side no matter what. Huh. I don't get it. Well, that's going to make this whole thing pointless, isn't it? How do you get that number to change? Come on. Let me see here. Oh, the joys of live streaming. Change the whole numbers with the outer knob. I know that part. Custom key bindings. Oh, okay. Let's see. Custom key bindings. This is going to be interesting. Let's see. For the Bravo, let's see. Let's duplicate. Let's go WB-Sim. And now. Let's go search by input. And we'll delete that. And then we'll go back. We'll go search by input. We'll delete that. And now, this is a pretty cool solution, actually. ADF. Come on, ADF. Be cooperative. Decrease ADF1. Increase ADF1. All right, now let's see if this works. Ha ha. Okay, what do we want? 361? No. That's not what we want. That is not what we want. Alright, now let's try controls. I swear we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this whether it's the end of the day or not. It's just trying to annoy me, and it's doing a really good job of it right now. Okay, so I want to delete these two. I want to increase it and decrease it by 10, not by 1. Can you believe one of the things that drives me nuts about Microsoft Flight Simulator, and always has, is how difficult they make it to do very, very simple things. Okay, now, come on. Nah, okay, can you just go back here? Yes, there we go. 361. 361. No, that's not. Come on. 3. What is with this now? Big numbers. 3. 361. Do we have it? Do we have it? Does it work is the question. Yes, it does, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it does. So we want a heading of. I want a heading of. What do I want? I would actually want 023 because what I want is, once I make this turn outbound, I'm going to be using the. I'm just going to be flying Dead Reckoning actually, initially, and then if I fly the Mist, I'm going to and fly the Hold. Then I am going to 023. I want that inbound, but again, actually, this doesn't even matter, does it? JGG, you're gonna have a fun time watching me do this. I'll tell you what. All right, so so here we go. Now 110.3. I'm gonna set this as view 1. Okay. Alright, 110.3. We got it tuned in. Localizer 203. We want the 203 inbound. Wrong way. That's about correct. This is so difficult. Why is this so difficult? Alright, 203. That's about correct. Alright, let's do it. Let me see. Alright, let's do it. Trim is set, mixture is rich. Alright, we should be good to go. Do we have fuel? Oh, look at that fuel. That's an amazing amount of fuel, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to take off and go straight outbound here. But I want to see this airport. I guess we'll see the airport here in a little bit. Bring our flaps up. This is the one of the joys of state saving. I mean, not that I have anything that, not that I need to be confused any more than I already am. All right, off we go into the wild blue yonder. And now I want to take a look around. I've never flown here in Ireland. And I lived in Ireland for one summer during college. Pretty cool airport. But yeah, there's definitely some terrain around here. There is definitely some terrain around here. So, let's go out to bound. And you're going to watch the NDB receiver. That's gonna point at the NDB the whole time. What heading do I want to fly outbound? That's clearly not correct. Let's fly the 203 outbound. Remember, this needle is always going to point directly at the NDB. And this DME distance is from the localizer, not from the ADF, the NDB rather. That is a cool apron. It's beautiful out here. Look at this. Alright, so let's climb to about 3,000 feet, which should only take us about 20 minutes here in the good old 152. I love the 150. I think this is, especially the this version of the airplane, the WBC, the WBSim JP Logistics 152. Great airplane. I love simple VFR aircraft. I mean, it's an IFR aircraft, obviously, but I love simple GA airplanes. I love them. They're, you know, they're not as simple to fly as people like to think they are. And why did that just flip? What's 113.0? There's obviously a VOR around here. Which makes me somewhat nervous. All right, so Cyberdime, so you're from the area. You're from around where we are. That's really awesome. I'm gonna keep flying outbound just a little bit, and then we'll turn, and you can see So I'm actually not really flying a very good 203, am I? But you can see that the NDB, like we said, or the ADF rather, is always pointing at the NDB. So we'll just continue our climb here, and we got another 200 feet to go. Man, this is awesome. I one time in my life almost wanted to do a tour of the UK in one of these airplanes, but I never did it. Alright, so we'll come back to 2400, let's nose it over and level off. And then we'll come around here shortly and we'll just fly inbound to the NDB. Alright, gotta get my power set here. Like the 150, yeah, it's great. VOR training, crosswind training, it's great. It's just a great airplane. And I think they did a really decent job with it, but the WB Sim version is just amazing. Come on, get down now. Alright, so now we're getting far enough away. Beautiful out here, look at this. Alright, so now we're going to do this. Make a right-hand turn here. And we'll come around. And we'll just head inbound to the NDB. NDB right now is at a heading of 030. No, it's not, Mike. It's not. Remember, the NDB, the needle points to where the NDB is. It's not a heading of 030. I should have just left it at 360. It would have been less confusing. So whenever that arrow centers, that means we were flying straight to the NDB. Alright. So let's fly to the NDB. And then once we hit the NDB, we're going to turn outbound. We're going to turn outbound 010 for 10 nautical miles until we hit 10 DME on this right here. It's interesting. So because the NDB and the localizer antenna are basically in the same place, the localizer is really acting as a DME for the NDB as well. That reminds me, you guys ever seen Fletch Lives? No, it wasn't Fletch Lives. It was Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams. Remember that? Let me see if I can actually fly a heading here. But again, so you're going to have to get wind corrections for the NDB as well, because there we go. I'm going to set this back to 360 because otherwise I'm just going to confuse myself, which is easy enough to begin with. And confusing me is not much of a challenge. But even this isn't going to resolve my mental issues. So, alright. Never mind. Never mind. Alright, so we are... Let's see, we're about 3 miles. You can then dial in your actual heading on the ADF gauge. Great for... Yeah, for awareness. Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. It's a very good point. And what I was gonna do was that's why I wanted to dial in the 203 was for the mist. And it says we just crossed, but I'm not gonna turn until we've crossed Oh, no, 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 no. See, this is confusing right here. Exactly. So this was confusing. So there's a VOR around here at 113.0, and it just flipped the flag on me on the number 2 VOR, and I thought that I had crossed the NDB, and I didn't. Or that I had crossed the localizer. Alright, in a real plane, can you visualize your aircraft on charts? Yes, you can. Depending on the program you're using, Brian, yes, you can. So I use 4Flight in the US, and it does have the overhead. It does have the moving map, they call it. See, now when you get in close to it, it's just going to start moving like crazy. So you just got to hold your heading, and then wait until it's fully reversed. And then what I'm going to do is turn to an outbound heading of 010, and I'm just going to hold that, because again, you're not going to know you're not going to know exactly what heading you want to fly a 010 course, because we don't know what the wind is doing quite yet. But we're just going to hold this. Yeah, Brian, I can't tell you how useful that is. The situational awareness you get today in GA airplanes is insane compared to what it was when I started flying 16 years ago. Like, it was just charts, and you had to visualize it in your head what was going on. So now we're gonna fly outbound until this reads 10, which is gonna take us a while, and then we're gonna come back around. I'm not sure. That flag should not be there, I don't think. For a localizer, I don't think it should be there. Yeah, it's just like a VOR. Like, the closer, when you get in close, the needle becomes unreliable. You start chasing it, you're gonna lose yourself. So let's get a little bit of nose up trim in here. Yeah, exactly. No chasing the DME. So I'm just holding this 010 heading, 3.6 now. And it'll be more interesting when we do this in the clouds, which we'll do after this. I'm just going to do one turn in the hold in good weather, and then we'll put us in the clouds, and then we'll see if we can do this. Then we'll see if we can do this in bad weather, which will be even more fun. So the needle is moving off center a little bit, which means there is some wind, because I'm holding a 010 heading, but my kind of straight out relationship to the NDB is changing, if that makes sense, the way I described that. So the only way that would happen is if there is wind. Temperature 15 dew point. Temperature 15 dew point 9er. See, visibility greater than 5.4 nautical miles. Let's see here. Maybe the weather's good enough we can use live weather. Marginal VFR, that's perfect actually. What are the winds? 203 at 5. That's perfect. You know what? You want to let's do. Do you want to do bad weather already, or you want to do it once visual, and then we'll do bad weather after? Somebody vote, and then I'll do either one. We got the 6.3. Coming back to, I would say the wind, based on what the NDB needle just did, I would say the wind is probably out of the west a little bit. Got 3 more miles to go. What do you guys want to do? You want to stick with good weather, or you want to go straight to straight to crappy weather, or marginal weather, shall we say. I'm gonna start checking my fuel. First the visual one, gotcha. We'll do that. That's perfect. That's a good idea. So let's do 7. We're at 7.5. Get that nose up just a tiny bit. And remember, this is it's not to scale. So the other thing is, it looks like what are those called where you can adjust the location of the virtually adjust the location of the VOR? I forget. No, that's actually Cyberdynamic. That's a great. It's great to use. I'd rather use live weather. It's more interesting. So we'll do one in visual, and then we'll do one. So as we make the turn, or no, actually we can come. No. Yes, we can actually come down. And I should have. Doesn't really matter, but we can actually come down. Tory Island has a lighthouse. Is it right there, perhaps? Right in the end? Because it might be there. Alright. So 9.7, 9.8. We can come down from 3,000 down to 2,300. There's 10.0. So now we'll make a standard rate turn. And we will expect to pick up the inbound localizer here. Yeah, so that was probably the lighthouse out there on the end. There's a you probably can't see it in the stream, but there's a little thing there. Yeah, Brian, you know, I'm trying not to use as much air conditioning as I usually do. I usually love some conditioned air, but weather's been good for us to be able to use to fly without AC, which is nice. One of those things I never really thought of. So once we get to, if the 203, okay, so 203, so I'm gonna hold myself right here because the needle is not coming in. Now it's coming in. So the 203 is over here, but if the needle doesn't start coming in, you just want to hold your heading for a little bit and see if it does start coming in. Boy, that hill right in front of us makes me a little nervous. There's 2,300 feet. We'll bring our power back in. Fly heading of 190 here. Yeah, the rest of the world is not as obsessed as Americans are about air conditioning. Like American cars, they build an air conditioner and then build the car around it. You know? So needle is centered. So now let's turn to go about 205. So I can see the runways. Generally see the runway straight out in front of us. So when we get to D7.0, which is right here, then we can start descending down, and I can already tell the wind is out of the right because the needle is moving to the right, which means I'm getting pushed to the left. So let's hold 210 here a little bit and see how that does. And then at a speed of about, let's go carp on, pull my power back to about 29 or 2100 rather. Give it a notch of flaps. Well, maybe I won't give it a notch of flaps yet. Even 215. Okay, so now we can start coming downhill. So we need about just over a 500 foot per minute descent rate. Now remember, so at 6 nautical miles, we want to see about 2,200 feet. We're below that, so... Oh, I just set... Let me see here. Yep. Alright, so... 6 miles, 2,200. I need to hold this because I need to be at about 1830 at 5 miles, and we're at 5.6, and I'm already under 1,800 feet. So 5 miles, we'll start our descent again. Boy. Alright, heading about 215, I think. Alright, there's 5 miles. I'm gonna go notch of flaps. I'm gonna get that nose down. So at 4 miles, I want about 1,500 feet. Come on, get down. And remember, I want about a 500 foot per minute descent rate. Maybe a little less because I'm under. You can see the runway straight out ahead of us. I'm under 90 knots now. 90 knots is about 500 feet a minute. 4 miles, 1,500 feet. That's perfect. Come on, get the nose down. And then 3 miles, we want about 1,130 feet, and we're coming down to 380. Trying to hold about 205 on the heading. Three miles, 1,130. See, we're not quite coming down enough. But do you see how we're on a constant descent? There's 3 miles. We're about 100 feet high, so I'm going to pull just a little bit of power out. 2 miles, we want about 800 feet. Needle is good. There's 1,000. We want about 800 at 200 feet. I feel like I'm a little bit better on this now. Now a little bit of power in because I think we're getting descending a little bit too much. 2.1, 800 feet. Good, good, good. 1, we want 430 feet. Needle is pretty good. Yeah, we really got to come down. Look at that. We went from two white, 2 red. Now we got 3 white, 1 red. A little bit more power out. One mile, 430 feet. Then minimums are 380. But see how that's a nice constant descent instead of goofing around trying to. There's 380. Power in, we're going missed. Alright, climb ahead to 1,500. $205. Get the nose down just a little bit, bring those flaps up. Carb heat off. Heading at 205. Alright. Climb to 1,500 feet. And a climbing right turn to the NDB. Now this is going to be a hoot. NDB hold, ladies and gentlemen. 205. That NDB needle is going to go a bit wacky because we're right on top of it right now. $1,500 feet, then a climbing right turn to 3,000 inbound to the NDB. So once we hit 1,500 feet, still on that 205 heading. It's 203, but 205 is good enough. So it's yeah, so we're gonna do, there's 1,500. So now we'll come around to the right and we'll come inbound to the NDB. Now I'm just gonna turn until that needle is pointed straight up. I don't really care what heading it is. That means that I'm straight in to the NDB. I'm only 2 miles from it. I probably should have climbed out ahead a little bit more, but I didn't. We want to climb up to 3,000 feet. So whenever that needle is centered on the ADF, which is about right now-ish, sort of. I'm just going to hold this heading right here. What is it? About 040. I'm just going to hold this heading. I don't care. The needle's going to start moving, and I'm just going to live with that. But once that needle reverses, I'm going to do a standard rate left-hand turn around to an outbound heading of 203, and then we'll start timing for 60 seconds. Right? And you can see, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, so MHA is minimum holding altitude. See, now that needle's starting to flip. And once it's completely reversed its course, then I'll start that left-hand turn. So MHA is minimum holding altitude and maximum is 5,000 feet. So there's 3,000, so we're going to bring the power back a little bit. Level off. That's pretty well reversed as far as I'm concerned. So let's do now a standard rate left-hand turn. Standard rate, we hold the wingtip right on that left hash mark. It's 3 degrees per second. You can see right here. See how it says 2 minutes? The reason is because a standard rate turn is a 2-minute turn, because it's 3 degrees per second. 360 divided by 3 is 120, which is 2 minutes. So we're coming around to a heading of 203. And again, this is my type of flying. I love boring instrument flying, my kind of stuff. To me, it's not boring, it's mentally stimulating as opposed to physically kind of interesting, you know what I mean? So now I'm at a heading of about 205, which is close enough for government work. I'm going to level off. Now I'm going to start my timer. 60 seconds. So now we'll go around in the hold for 60 seconds, or we'll go outbound rather for 60 seconds. And again, this is all approximation because we don't know. First of all, it's an NDB, and second of all, we don't know necessarily what the wind is doing. Brian, I never tried a VR headset either. I'm telling you, it is unbelievable how good it is. it's truly unique. It's so realistic. Yeah, it keeps the grapes working, exactly. But there is a physical element to instrument flying, and the physical element to instrument flying, first of all, and now we'll start our left-hand turn here, and we'll if we did this exactly correct, which I'm sure we haven't. It's not possible to do exactly correct the first time around anyway. If we do it exactly correct, we should have a centered ADF needle when we roll out on a 023 degree heading. That's why I did that before, and then I undid it, which wasn't too smart. So I'm gonna turn this to about 023. Not too bad. Not too bad. Well, we gotta keep coming around. Well, we're right on top of it is the issue. So we're right on top of it. So I should have realized that. So now what we're gonna do, let's go live weather. This isn't exactly bad weather, is it? Alright, let's do another left-hand turn here. Alright, so now I guess what we're gonna do is, it says marginal VFR. This is certainly not marginal VFR. Alright, let's do, I don't know why with overcast it doesn't do what am I looking for? 203. I want it to be worse. Let's just go rain again. This rain, it'll give us some. Yeah, there we go. That's what we like. Alright, so we'll go about 205. Oh, it takes time to load? I'm pretty happy with this. This is rotten. Cyber, my assumption is that the weather in the sim is just not correct. Which is not unheard of. Alright, so no. Es ist doch milchschuppig. Alright. Oh wait, that's what I want. Alright. Alright, so let's see here. And what's weird is anytime I try to set the weather, it never sets the low where I want it. I'm just gonna wait a little bit because I want a little bit more of an outbound. I want a little bit more of an inbound leg rather. We'll do a 2-minute turn. Because when you're so close in, by the time you get the inbound turnaround, by the time you get the turn done, you're already over top of the NDB. So we'll do a 2-minute hold here. No. Alright, now we'll start our left-hand turn. No, don't you be climbing on me now. Alright. It's even cheating with the overhead, but I want you guys to be able to see where the I want you guys to be able to see where the airplane is. Otherwise, it doesn't. Otherwise, you're just watching this, and it doesn't really make any sense. No. What I'm looking for is 023 inbound. Let's see if I find that. Once this needle over here centers, and I could really stop going up and down and up and down, that would help too. Alright, so I mean, we're not perfectly on, but we're not too bad. But we do need to come back to the right here a little bit. So I want to keep that needle centered. It should be about right there. All right, so whatever I have to do to keep that needle centered is what I need to do. And then, yeah, it takes a while. It's mental gymnastics, but it's a lot of fun. And this is why I don't like autopilots in small airplanes, because it takes all the challenge out of it. If I want the airplane to fly, I mean, if I were doing this in real life, would I use the autopilot? Absolutely. But in the sim, nah. Because in the real world, your behind is at stake. In the sim, it's not. In the real world, I use every tool I have to keep the dirty side down and the clean side up. So the needle's starting, the ADF needle is starting to move. So once the ADF needle, I'm just going to hold my heading now. Once the ADF needle flips, then I'm just going to stay on a heading of 010 here for the outbound. Remember that big hill right in front of the airport? I haven't forgotten that. I haven't forgotten that. Alright. There's the needle flipped. And we're there already. We're basically on a 010 heading. So I'm going to turn right just a little bit and get in a 010 degree heading. And then we'll just hold this heading. And eventually this is going to start giving us distance. Now it does. And now we're going to just fly outbound to 210 nautical miles. And now that we're outbound 010, I can start coming down to 2,300 feet. Last time I didn't do that. This time I want to, just so I don't have to be descending and turning at the same time. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to hold that 010 degree heading. And I'm just going to come down really gently. I just pulled 100 RPM out of the throttle, and let's just come down nice and gentle. Because I got 10 miles to do it. Yeah, frame rates are at 58. Exactly that. So my goal is to be at 2,300 feet when we hit the 10 degree, or the 10 nautical mile distance. 3 miles, we've come down 300 feet. That's about right. And this way we can get down to 2,300, get ourselves level. And it just gives us, and then we don't have to do multiple things at the same time here. One of the mistakes people make when they come out of the clouds like this, if you know you're going to go back into them, don't start looking outside. Just keep your eyes on your instruments. Keep flying your instruments. It can be really difficult and really disorienting to re-establish an instrument scan once you go back into the clouds. Yeah, this is a cool approach. This is a fun one. For sure. Altitude I'm keeping an eye on is 2,300 feet. And then we're going to level off there. And I'm probably just going to level off by pulling the nose up, because then that'll help slow me down a little bit. Which is preferable because so I don't like trying to do multiple things at the same time on instruments. I don't like to be slowing down, turning, and changing power settings and getting your instruments set up and everything else. I like to keep things as simple as possible. So there's 2,300 feet, 010. We still got 4 miles to go, which is fine. Getting us trimmed out level here. Which the airplane does not feel like doing. I knew it. Okay. Right there. Alright, 6.8. We still got a couple miles to go. You know what? It's actually D7.0. I was wrong about that earlier. So we can start making our turn in. The designation is D010G, but the distance is D7.0. So standard rate turn right here. Keep that wingtip right in the white hash mark. Standard rate turn. I'm climbing, which is it's okay. I need to be 2,300 or above. So, keeping an eye on that needle. And if that needle doesn't start coming in by the time that the 210 is about right here on this 45, and it is, okay. It took so long to come in before because I went 10 miles out, not 7 miles out. Came through it a little bit. Alright. At 7 miles, 2,300 feet. Stop it. Alright. Now I can start coming down. I want to be 2,200 feet at... I'm going to notch of flaps here. 2,200 feet at 6 miles. Right there. Carb heat on. Alright. And then needle is kind of wandering a little bit to the right, so I'm going to come right into about a 215 heading. The airplane didn't want to come down right there, but I knew it would start eventually. Alright, 215 in the heading. Alright, at 5 miles I want 1830. Which I'm not going to get to at this rate. Bring the power back a little bit. Alright, heading at 215 is perfect. Needle is coming back a little bit. 5 miles, we're going to be 400 feet high almost, which is not good. I'll bring a little bit more power out. I don't want to get in too steep of a descent, but I do need to start catching up. About 4 miles, I want about 1,500 feet. Yeah, we're way high. We're way high and it's not coming down. Therefore, let's pull some power out here. Alright. Four miles, 1,500 feet. Needle is centered. Gotta let it come down. I don't want to... Not anything more than 1,000 feet a minute, but I do need to let it come down. Alright. Now we're getting back on it. 3 miles, 1130. Bring in just a little bit of power. Correct back to the left a little bit. 210 maybe. Got the runway in sight, but I'm going to stay on the 1130 at 3 miles. I'm going to stay on instruments because you don't know. Three miles, 1130. Back right just a little bit. Still not looking out the window. It's hard to get yourself back focused inside if you're... Oh, we're below it now. Okay, that we don't want. 800 feet at 2 miles. Alright, focus. $800 feet at 2 miles. Come back left. Little bit more power. $800 feet. 2.2. Little bit low, but not too bad. 210. Alright. We are now 700 for 380, I believe. 1 mile, 430 feet. Still keeping my head inside. Come back to the right a little bit. You want to go mist, or we want to go mist, or we want to land? I don't know, I think that one was pretty good. Alright, minimums are 380. Somebody call it. Whoopsie, she leveled out right there. Alright, let's go mist. Go mist and we'll do this one more time. Do this one more time. I don't want to pitch up too much. Come back right. Come back, yeah. My other right. Come back left here to about 205 heading. Alright, now climb to 1500. We'll see if we can get this one spot on. Alright, climbing to 1500. Alright, we gotta go flaps up, carb heat off, heading at 205. Come on now, I know you can climb. Let's see, 25C here. Yeah, it's warmer here than I realized it was. I'm doing S turns here. Keep a climbing. I'll hold about 7.5 degrees nose up is pretty good. Right between these two markers is perfect. About 7.5 degrees. Wait a minute. What the heck am I doing? Oh, you're right. Okay. This is why... No. Yes. This is why I hate parallel entries. Remember, for anybody who was in the class Tuesday, I told you, I hate parallel entries. This is a parallel entry. And it's prescribed, so you have to do it. I hate parallel entries because this is a left-hand turn pattern, and right now we're making a right-hand turn. Because you have to enter it. The mist is a right-hand turn, but the hold is a left-hand turn. So we got to climb to 3,000 feet. Get that NDB needle over there centered. I hate parallel entries. They're dangerous. That just confused me. I just lost track of what I was doing. I just totally lost track of what I was doing because we're turning against the direction of the hold. Gotta get that needle centered. 2,500 climbing 3,000. Alright, there we go. But heading at 030. Climb to 3,000, and then we make a left-hand turn. No, stop it. Then we make a left-hand turn around to 203 degrees. I hate parallel entries. I hate them. They're dangerous. There's 3,000 feet. Either that or I'm not very bright, one of the two. Probably a combination of the two. Now we're going to wait to cross the NDB. Going to wait for this needle to reverse. I got to stop chasing the vertical speed and just focus on my attitude indicator. Nope. Alright. Now once that needle is fully reversed, then we do a left-hand turn. It's good enough for me. Do a left-hand. Now, see what I mean? You do a right-hand turn to enter the hold, and then you do left-hand turns in the hold. I don't like that. Alright, now I'm just focusing right here, keeping that dot right in the horizon. Because that's going to keep me, doing what I want to do. And I'm coming around to a outbound heading at 203. Keep that standard rate turn going. See, that was because I just didn't have my brain fully engaged. And that parallel entry to the hold really goofed me up. 205. Close enough. Alright, now always be careful coming out of a turn because the nose is going to want to come up. Now we're going 60 seconds. Alright, 203, 60 seconds. Stop climbing. Thank you. Alright. How am I doing on fuel? I'm going to learn my lesson from last time. Another 15 seconds to go. Okay. There we have it. Left-hand turn. Until that NDB needle is straight, and we should wind up relatively close to 203. If not, I'm not going to be happy with myself. And then once I'm just letting the nose come down a little bit because we gained some altitude there. Keep that turn coming. The only thing I'm worried about right now is this needle centering up. I hope it centers up on a 203 degree heading. I don't see how that's going to be possible. We're way off. Yeah, we're way off. But now we just fly the needle straight to the NDB. So up here, there must be a pretty stiff wind from the east, or west rather. There must be a pretty stiff west wind because we got pushed way the heck over here without any ground speed indication. It's hard to know. Then again, we might have been right on top of the NDB too. We were. So once that fully reverses, we'll go right hand turn to 010. Quite a push eastwards, yeah. Right hand turn to 010. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready for lunch. Alright, 010. Pull out. I'm gonna pull out 50 RPM this time. Just because I know I don't need to pull out that much to come down because it takes a while to get out to 7 miles. So we're in decent shape. Yeah, I saw that Stonehenge thing in the news. That's pretty wild. How did they not notice that for the last, 5,000 years? Hey, what's this? Okay, so we're going 100 knots, indicated 100 knots. So it must be a direct crosswind right now. You had dinner 2 hours ago. I was doing some flight sim stuff before this morning when I was doing other things, some testing, and let's see, 2.7 miles. And by the time I got done with everything, it was 12:45 my time, or 12:40 my time, which was 20 minutes before I was going to start this. So 3.5 miles, we've come down about 250 feet, so we can just pull just a tiny bit more power out. So I didn't have time for lunch. The sacrifices I make. So I was flying the A320 earlier today, and I am the world's worst A320 pilot. My word. JGG pilot, I'm hungry too, man. I've got some empanadas downstairs. Still 010 coming up on 5 miles. Altitude is good. 26 descending 23. Beans on toast. Your wife is away. Yeah, that's when you get to eat fun stuff, you know? My wife is an amazing cook. I've seen my wife use a recipe twice in 24 years. She is unbelievable. Yeah, the sim is running beautifully. Alright, 6 miles. We got 1 to go. So and if that's actually, that's why, so it must be a good west wind out of the west, because that's why the turn in got us through the needle so quickly. There's 2,300 feet. We're at 7 nautical miles. Look at this. I love it when it works out like this. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to wind up going through the needle here because of that west wind. Because that wind is now turning into a tailwind. But if I stop climbing in the turn, that's also going to help. When it says you can come down to 2,300 feet, you should. I was at like 2,500 feet before, and I was consistently high all the way down. It's a non-precision approach, but that doesn't mean you have to fly sloppy. Come on now. The needle's not coming in, is it? Alright. I'll hold right here. I should have held earlier. Whoops. Nope, no. There's rocks in them there, clouds. I'll come back left a little bit. About 190 and just wait. Carb heat on. Needle, I would prefer if you'd start coming in. Hello, needle. There we go. And we're at 6 miles, and we should be at 2,200 feet. And I'm only 100 feet high. I gotta wait for that needle to come in, because otherwise I can't be sure that I'm not going to hit anything. So I'll bring the power back to 21. Notch of flaps. Nose down. I want to get that nose down to 500 feet a minute and just peg it there. Alright. Now at 5 miles I want 1,800. Oh, we're way high again. Alright, 210 to correct for the wind. It is a west wind. Alright, 4 miles, 1480. We're like, man, we're high. Alright, let's get it down. You know what? Why don't we add another notch of flaps instead of goofing around? Drag is my friend right now. 4 miles, 1700. We should be at 15, so we're not too bad. Nose up a little bit. Three miles, I want to be at 1130. Do not want to be descending at 500 or 1,000 feet a minute. That I don't want. That needle is staying right, so I got to correct back a little bit more. 220. All right, 3 miles, 1130. We're getting a little bit closer to the profile here. A little bit of power in. Tiny bit low, but now what's going to happen is I'm going to start dropping below the profile, which I do not want. Alright, 1,004, 380. 2 miles, we want 800 feet, so now I really want to calm down here. Heading at 215 at least. A little bit more power in because 2 miles and 780 is coming up on us quick here. That needle's going to get more sensitive as we get closer in, so I don't want to start getting like extreme corrections for the wind, because that could be problematic. 780. We're right on 780. There's 2 miles. We'll bring it back. About 500 feet a minute is what I want. 215 and 500 feet a minute. Alright. 430 at a mile. Needle is centered. No, don't do that. Don't start doing the opposite on me now. One thing I don't want to do is if you get updrafts short final and then you're all of a sudden you're way high. So 380 feet. Do I see a runway? Yes, I do. I see those pappies. Ah, there we go. Okay. See, I saw the pappies. So you can keep coming down if you see them, but 3 red, 1 white is not what I want to see. If I had seen 4 red, it would have been an immediate go around. But that was legit right at 380 feet. Alright. Power's coming out now. Got a little sloppy there at the end, but it's non-precision. But again, you want to be as precise as you can, because you want to be at the MDA at the missed approach point, because that gives you the most leeway to see the I mean, if I had been 50 feet higher, I wouldn't have seen the runway, and I'd have to go around. And I'll let you in on a little secret. The point of an approach is to land. Actually, that's not true. But now let's go check out this cool little airport. That was a fun That was a fun flight. That's a challenging approach. You gotta use your noggin for this one. That was a fun approach. It really was. And the thing is, like, people might say, "Oh, you know, in a Cessna 150, it's really easy." Trust me, it's not. I mean, if you wanted to do that in like a Bonanza, you gotta be. Your brain would be. Because that's the thing. The faster you're going, the faster you have to think. That's why speed matters in an airplane. Oh, boy, that was fun. I don't know if you guys had fun. I certainly did. Turn my carb heat off. That was fun. What are you talking about? Alright. Cool. Mixture to idle. Cut off throttle is idle. Parking brake set. Let's see. Lights coming off. Avionics. There is no avionics switch. Mags off. Master and battery switches off. And here we are. That was a fun time. Man. Yeah, and the more you have to plan ahead, absolutely. Absolutely. That was a fun one. I enjoyed that. Ha! Look at that. Look at the American being entertained by. So, I mean, Donegal, right? Interesting. That is really cool. I'm easily entertained, as you can probably tell. He's had a Guinness. Neat. Yeah, that livery is pretty sweet, isn't it? I love this airplane. I love flying the 152. Really do. 'Cause it gives you time to think, you know, but I think it's. I don't know if I want to say more challenging. What? I just ran into something. I don't want to say more challenging because it's a six-pack, but it's, you know, I don't see the sense in some ways of flying, you know, a Cessna 172 with a coupled autopilot. Maybe I need to, oh, there's some cones. With a coupled autopilot and a G1000, like, I mean, where's the challenge in that, in my opinion? You know? I like challenging myself. Oh, come on. Open the door. Let me in. Huh. Well, I guess we're not going inside unless this is an automatic door. But man, this is a cool little airport. I love the small airports in the sim. That the yeah, Brian, this is so they I'm about to walk right into a wall again. Yep. So they modeled the inside of the airport, but there's no way to get in there. Yeah, this is one of the default airports. I think it's not for the Aviator edition. It might be like I forget what the next one is. Okay, well, we're not going inside. Why would they model the inside of the airport and not let you go in there? Anyway, it's pretty cool. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I certainly did. That was 2.5 hours of some of me flying and some of me talking and then some of us staring at the screen. But I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate the company and the time. Chicken Arborizza pizza. Now that sounds like a darn good idea. That sounds like a darn good idea. Can you use free cam in third person? I don't know. I just like, why would they model the inside of the airport and then you can't get in there? And normally you can just walk through walls, you know? They did a really nice job. They really did. This is a cool little airport. But I love, that's one of the things that I love about the sim is they've done these random little airports that, why would the door is there and it's blocked by this? They've done all these random little airports, you know, and it's just a fun thing in my opinion. But Orbix just released your local airport. Oh, that's pretty cool. EGNE. I'm gonna check that out, Ryan. EGNE. So I'm gonna go have lunch. I'm gonna run into this door first. Oh, that hurt. But this is really cool. So I hope you guys had as much fun as I did, and hopefully we will see you again next week. We're gonna do I'll do either Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, depending. But I will put it on my website, IslandSimPilot.com, if you guys want to check that out. Again, anybody who wants to support what I'm doing, I've got you can join the channel on YouTube, or I've got a Patreon as well. Both the links are in the description. And I just thank everybody for coming out, because I certainly enjoyed this. This was a fun approach, and that was the first time I've ever had to deal with an NDB, which was pretty awesome. So thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate the company. Brian, Cybernami, JGG, I know you're out there. But thanks for coming and flying with me today, guys. I hope everybody's doing well, and have a great rest of your day.